Hello, greetings and salutations. Welcome back to the BFC. Check the description below for not only great resources for general due diligence, but for some links directly related to this video regarding Levento Group. So be sure to click and do some digging. And while I'm not a current shareholder, it's nice to sit down with people in the trenches of the business world, specifically the OTC, and learn more about it. And while you're down there, check out my Twitter, Patreon, and MooMoo Link for free stocks. All right, on with it. Here is my interview with Justin Mathews of Levento Group. Justin Mathews, welcome to the BFC. It's great to have you here.
Thank you, Eric. Pleasure to be here.
All right, so I'm just going to dive right into the questions here. Could you give shareholders and potential shareholders a view into the role of Justin Mathews at Levento Group? What is your experience and your overall role with Levento?
Sure. Thanks, Eric. I like the way you give me an opportunity to start with something easy and light before you get into the real grilling later. So, look, David Stieber and I have been working together for, 5 years. And I suppose principally, David is responsible for, vision, M&A, acquisitions, finance and admin. I'm responsible for sales and marketing and investor relations. And that's pretty much how we've got it split up. I've seen it with a lot of small companies that people can end up being the jack of all trades and kind of like master of none. And I think we avoid that, and we avoid that very well. So quite clear responsibilities. Don't tread on each other's toes, and work very well together by and large. Yeah.
Great. Who are the team members of Levento Group? Could you go further and explain their roles?
Yeah, sure. So David's the CEO. He runs the show. Then you've got me, sales and marketing. You've got another David, who's treasury. You have James in compliance and IT, and he does a lot of the work with all that administration and filing requirements that are required. You've got Ashwin, who is in the US, primarily focused on investor relations in the US. Those are the core members.
It sounds like you guys have a strong camaraderie. I know your shareholder base seems very enthusiastic and strong too. Looking at quarters 1 through 3 of 2022, there was a decent amount of growth year over year. What is Levento Group doing to increase revenues this year? And can you speculate or as to how quarter 4 has played out in 2022, or is that not prepared yet?
So, look, we're pretty happy with the way 2022 worked out, and 2023 will be dramatically different. So let's take Boxo first, if I can. Boxo I describe as a bit of a slow train that gathers momentum. We're not in the fashion industry, boom and bust, where you can make a new pink T-shirt, get it marketed by an influencer, and sell millions of them. And just because they get great reviews and pink is the color of the quarter. We're in a very different business, and we invest in content and rights. And that gathers value over a period of time. And I just realized I banged the table and then the camera started shaking, so we won't do that again.
Oh, you're fine. You're fine.
Good job. It's fireside chat and not CNBC, right?
No, you keep going. Hey, to everybody, if you're enjoying this interview, guys, click the subscribe button. You're doing a great job. It's actually great having you on. So keep going, sir.
Good. So there is some revenue in process, or the real revenue comes from pre-sale to distributors, and of course, when that movie is fully developed, sold, and gets screen time. This can be 9 months, for example. So content that we acquire in month 1, whatever month 1 is, starts to get its best return maybe 9 months later. So if we invest in 1, 2, then 3 or 4 pieces of content a month, that slowly gathers momentum and builds. Kind of look at it as house bricks being built on a house, and you slowly build, then that's how we will achieve greater revenue as time goes on.
Yeah, and it sounds like you have a clear vision for really laying the foundation there. So I hope that really works out. I know your shareholders do as well too. As of November 21st, Levento PR that they are now SEC fully reporting. We are expecting a formal name change from NUGN International to Levento Group Incorporated, as well as an upgrade to OTCQB. Can you elaborate on the Form 10 process? What were some setbacks, if any, and can you go into detail about the tediousness of the overall process?
So you're looking for me to relive some kind of nightmare over the last quarter, Eric?
On a scale of 1 to 10, how painful was it? 10 being the most painful.
Look, it's quite painful, but I'm not going to exaggerate it, just in case anybody from SEC, watches the Buffalo Fireside Chat. But look, I talk about it with investors quite a lot, as you need resilience and persistence. And look, we've made some errors and mistakes along the way in terms of going through that process, and the goalposts, quite frankly, were changed on us a little bit, halfway through. But look, we're at the final staging post. Quite literally, we think we have submitted Form 10 for the last time, and so there's really nothing, I don't think, for the SEC to do other than sign it off. And we're expecting that to happen in a matter of days. And I think what's also changed with the SEC and our relationship with them is that they now do reply to us extremely quickly. I remember going back in the summer last year when we were completing documentation for them, we would send it off, and frustratingly, you'd wait a month, 2 months to get a response. And of course, investors and shareholders are asking, what happened to the Form 10? Well, we don't have a reply yet from OTC or SEC. But now it's almost like they feel we're at the final staging post. It's like, well, there's actually nothing more. There's nothing else we can ask them, these guys. So they now reply to us, within a couple of days of when they've asked for something, and we deliver it.
That's awesome. I'm glad to hear that the communication between you guys has tightened and you are getting those quick responses. And, and based on based on my experience in talking with people, it is that the process is a pain in the ass. A lot of short sellers and shareholders, they're like, well, they just submitted it yesterday. Why haven't we heard anything? Well, this is a process that takes quite a long time. And the more substantial your business is, the more time it's going to take. And there's more filings to fill. So congratulations on getting that through, and I'm glad that relationship has tightened for you guys.
Mm-hmm. That's okay. No, that's great. Thanks, Eric. And look, we've been put through the ringer, and I think what investors can gain some comfort from, whether it be us or in that fact any other OTC stock who's going through the same process, is that when that process is complete, investors should have a lot more confidence that business is a real business and it's going places. And they have tightened up requirements and procedure, and we have really been put through the ringer. But frankly, I only see that as a good thing in the future. Perhaps the cowboy days of some of the OTC stocks are gone. That can only be good for investors, and it'll only be good for us, because the number of companies which investors will feel comfortable in allocating hard-earned cash to will be a smaller pool, maybe a smaller pool of companies, and we'll be in that group.
Totally. And I could say, with the economic pullback, with the recession here, or not official a recession, sure, but with the inflation, I think this is a golden opportunity, especially for investors, to really find the companies that are exceeding their expectations and getting their Form 10s done, getting onto OTCQB, because this is a time for people to invest in the companies that are thriving during one of the hardest economic times that I've experienced, my family has experienced. So it's great to see that. I think we're in a real special time because they are cleaning things up. So I'm glad that they finally are. And you're gonna be able to find better companies now, instead of having to sift through thousands of junk companies with real products, real revenue, real contracts. So that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Your most recent security details were updated yesterday. The outstanding share count is 227 million, and you guys are sitting at a market cap of about 18.3 million. As you move forward with projects, you will likely have an increase of expenditures. What can you say to the shareholders and potential shareholders to affirm that the share structure is going to remain intact?
So the share structure is going to remain intact. There's no dilution. There's no dilution, planned. It's not it's not something that we are looking to do or even considered. Actually, I think on one of David's announcements, a couple of months ago, I think there's actually going to be a reduction in the number of shares outstanding, and that will be applied day one that the OTC approved the form 10. So no change in shareholder structure is currently planned. And regarding your question on planned expenditure, look, as we get bigger, you imagine that expenses are going to increase. However, we invested, let's call it an investment, we had quite a significant expense in that we placed in that we had in the business last year. I think it was north of $300,000 in external consultants, advisors, lawyers, filing fees. And when you're going through this process, everybody is there at the trough waiting to feed off it. And we're not going to have that. We're not going to have that cost again. So look, if we put that to one side, there's going to be an increase in some expenses, but we have the team that we need. That if this business was 4 or 5x where we are now, we don't actually need any additional headcount. There might be, I can foresee, an additional headcount in the AI and tech team, for some of the plans that we've got to put together and deliver with the fund with the project management tool for funds. But other than that, we have the team in place to grow, 5x, 10x without much further headcount.
That's excellent. Can you share with us and break down the different divisions of the Levental Group, Boxo, portfolio management system, and real estate?
Yeah, so Boxo, film production business, and which is really investing in content at an early stage, developing that content through to production, through to the production phase. I liken it actually to the real estate business, where so in real estate, if you're at the forefront of the industry in real estate, you're buying land. You are developing that land, you're hiring an architect, you're getting a construction company, you're getting planning permission, you're getting all the key parts of a real estate development, into place. And then, you'd look for a big developer, maybe like Lincoln, and take it over. We want to put 100 houses on it. In Boxo, we are investing early in the content, in the script, the screenwriter. We're getting the directors, producers, casting. We're getting all those key elements that are needed in place, packaging it, which is what the industry refer to it as, and then pitching it to distributors. That could be big screen distributors, or it could be streamers. So that's what Boxo is. That's what Boxo's about.
Cool. Well, sorry. I know we're going to talk a little bit more about Boxo later. That's great. Keep going.
That's okay. And so AI and tech. Look, that's the project management portfolio management system tool, which we supply to funds, and that uses many years of data from the Dow Jones. We acquired it years ago, and we created our own AI tool, which, let's say, predicts and forecasts where, as an investor, you should be placing your funds. And so for the last 4 years, that fund delivered 14 to 16%, or the tool delivered 14 to 16%. Last year, we got 12% out of the tool. And so, frankly, the investors in the fund that we know quite well, called Fiber Wealth, which uses that tool, and we have an agreement with them to kind of publicly, talk about their results, and they also publicly acknowledge that they use our tool. Investors are stoked with those numbers, because last year, it seems weird actually to talk about 2022 as last year because it's so fresh still, but last year indeed, it was a horrid year for the stock markets, and investors who were just sitting in bog standard S&P, NASDAQ trackers, they just got hosed. And so you needed to be in an actively managed fund. and even some of the so-called smart money big hedge funds, they didn't make money last year. And so investors really need to be increasingly savvy about where they put their money, where they invest. And I think that if my dream, if you like, for this year might be, how could we get that tool out to the public? At the moment is being used mostly by funds which are qualified investor funds. And I know I'm kind of rattling on a bit now, Eric.
No, you're fine.
And maybe even I've jump-started some of your future queses. But
no, you did. But that's great. That's great.
Yeah. So my vision for this tool would be for just regular investors to be able to access the tool where they know, and they have a better opinion about where they should be placing their money. Nothing's guaranteed. I can't just because the tool says, okay, well, let's move your money and split it between Coke, Procter and Gamble, Merck, and McDonald's, and you should weight it in different areas. Of course, there's no guarantee that that's going to outperform the market, but frankly, it has for the last 5 years. So that would be good enough for me to say, let's put it on the market, and allow individual investors to be able to access that data and insight.
Yeah, that's awesome. And when you talk about 12% return, that's significant. What was the name of the product again?
So we call it ilus.
Ilus. See, and you sent that to me. Ilus. I said I completely wrong. My pronunciation is completely wrong.
Just depends which side of the pond you're on.
You know what? And that's why we're doing this, so I can learn a little bit, and everybody watching can learn a little bit.
Sure.
I got to ask, which of the divisions that we're doing, that you guys have, which do you think is going to be your top revenue producer this year?
Without a shadow of a doubt, it'll be Boxo. That's a 100% certainty that it's Boxo this year is going to be the main revenue producer.
I want to get to Boxo because I did have some questions about this. As you stated, it's the movie production sector. And I've read some articles from Levento that refer to a content bank. Could you elaborate more on the content bank?
Oh no, this is my sweet spot, Eric. And
this is your jam right here. Yeah, this is your jam.
Yeah, I love the fact that you brought content bank up, because this is my baby. I've kind of coined this phrase within the business. So a content bank for me is exactly what we're building. It's a bank of content, and content that we acquire, rights that we acquire, if you like, are going into the bank. They're kept safely in the bank. They grow in value over time in the bank. Of course, at some point they reach a level of maturity, and then whether we will continue to keep them in the bank is a different question. If you look at you look at a movie like Top Gun, for example. Well, that's a piece of that's rights and IP, which the owners of Top Gun will probably keep in the bank forever. That's if you look at the IP and rights for Friends, in the US, that I still think 20 years later is in like the top 10 or top 5 watched series. Fantastic. If someone had whoever bought the rights and developed that 20, 30 years ago, that was a fantastic investment. So for us, it is about building, or for us, it's about building this bank of content, which we continue to invest in. We continue to put more rights and acquire more rights into the content bank, and build it.
That is exciting. It's very exciting to see how this really transpires this year and how it grows. Back to November 30th, the PR regarding the role of Boxo in the post-production of Savage Salvation. And you did allude to this a little bit earlier. Are there more production contracts in the pipeline? What is the projected revenue for this project in Q4, if you guys have that? I know that you guys may not have your Q4 numbers yet. because it's very early in January. And what's projected to bring? I'm sorry. What is it projected to bring in this year? If you understand sort of what I'm trying to ask there.
Yeah, no, that's all right. That's all right. So Q4 numbers I don't have yet. And 2023 budget or forecast we'll be putting out in about 2 weeks' time. So we've pretty much agreed it internally. Just needs to be kind of like finally approved, audited, signed off, and we'll be releasing that in the next couple of weeks. But I would expect a substantial increase in revenue this year. There is absolutely no reason why not. If you look at what we've invested in 2022, everything that we've invested in 2022 that didn't have revenue will have a substantial revenue in 2023. So if you look at 2022, we invested in quite a number of pieces of content, some different movies, some different books. And those are in development stage, and so they will become revenue generating assets this year as it becomes content which is watched. So we do make some revenue. We do make some revenue from the moment that we acquire the assets and start working with production companies. But the real revenue, of course, occurs when it's actually being filmed and watched. So when people start watching it and we've sold it to Amazon Prime or Netflix or whoever, then that's of course where we make significantly more revenue.
Yeah, that's sort of what I gathered just by the research that I've been doing, is that especially when it's like putting out an album, it could be,
sure,
you don't know how and that goes on a quarter by quarter basis. But I mean, you could put out an album, it may have maybe a small percentage of downloads in January, but next thing you know, May or June could be really hot. You know what I mean? So, and we're talking movies, and we're talking box. So I got to ask you, what's your favorite movie or favorite genre? Please don't say romantic comedy. You don't strike me as a romantic comedy.
You mean I don't look romantic, Eric? What's going on? Look, I'm British, so I grew up on James Bond.
Oh yeah,
yeah. So hopefully I'm not going to take any stick about that. But I love James. I love James Bond. It's a great character. Would have loved to have owned the rights to that. What else do I like? Generally I'm a action, comedy, adventure, kind of watcher. I went to the movies a couple of weeks ago with my son and we watched Violent Nights. I don't know if you've seen that.
I haven't.
No, fantastic. You should watch that. It's a Christmas type movie, but really quite violent. So Santa Claus saves the day. A very violent Santa Claus saves the day of a family that's being kidnapped. But it's actually very funny. Other stuff that I like to watch. Look, I love Grown Ups. I think the Grown Ups 1 and 2, fantastic movies. So that's the kind of content which I'm watching. I have a 16-year-old son, so what 16-year-old boys want to watch. And I have a 12-year-old daughter. So it could be anything from fairies on the TV to Fast and Furious.
Oh yeah, I'm a movie watcher. I love my sci-fi. I love my action. I like a lot of the dark movies, murder mysteries, all that stuff. So we grew up, watching movies. I would go to my dad's on the weekend, and we would go to the theaters off. Sometimes we would see 2 or 3 movies in one day. We go to the show, and it would be a day thing where we would go to the movie theater. That was before you could actually purchase a new release and sit and watch it in your living room. So
yeah, sure.
Thanks for sharing that with us. Thanks for sharing that with me.
That's
I appreciate it. So I wanted to just ask, what would you say is the most exciting thing you've encountered in the business world? And would you say that Levento, your time there, has really topped it?
So look, my time at Levento is absolutely a career highlight. And I think that over the next couple of years, it will become probably the real highlight of my career, because I think what we're trying to build, or what we are building and successfully building, will be a business which will be it'll be 10x in a couple of years, time where we are in revenue and profit. And if we get to OTCQB, and then we've already talked to investment banks, who have had some opening discussions with us about how we would get to NASDAQ in a couple of years' time. We've talked to some big money players in OTC markets about sponsoring and investing to get us in that direction. So if we can achieve that, then yeah, sure. So if I'm an officer of a company that we get to take to NASDAQ, then I've ticked the box of career highlight, right?
Oh, heck yeah, absolutely. And remind yourself, it's not a matter of if, but when, because it seems like you guys are doing everything the correct way. So it's when you get to the OTCQB. So congratulations ahead of time. It sounds like it's going to be absolutely awesome.
Oh, no, well, that is absolutely, that is pretty much, yeah. The OTCQB is pretty much a dead cert. That's, we're just a sniff away from moving through to the next phase.
That's awesome. Great. I'm so glad you're sharing all this information with us. If you're at home and you're watching this video, click subscribe and give a thumbs up and leave your comments on Levento. Leave them down below. And listen, I have another couple questions for you before we close out here. Sure. Will we see a
formal... It's like, Eric, this is like talking to the SEC. They've always got something else to ask.
there's always more. And I gotta say, this has been a really, really fun interview. And from an interviewer standpoint, I gotta say, guys, it's great to go off script sometimes. And I get to sport my wife's lovely mug. She made me, the Buffalo Fireside Chats mug. And if you want to get merch and earn merch, check out the Patreon in the link below. So I wanted to ask you, are we going to see a formal marketing campaign from the Levento Group?
Yes, you will see a formal market. You will see a formal marketing campaign from us. And a lot of investors have asked us. A lot of investors have asked us about that. And our perspective, and I know it's frustrated some people, right? Our perspective has been, we don't want to market Levento Group all the time that OTC markets on their website are calling it NUGN International. I'm marketing then a confusing message. So no, of course there's different opinions on that. But for us, I want to put money into marketing when on OTC markets they have actually changed the name to Levento Group, and I can get that ticker change from NUGN to LIVG, for example. And then we're marketing the complete package. And we also have something very exciting happening at the end of the month, which people will see a big marketing campaign for, is that we have a Reg CF going out in the market probably towards the end of the month through our partners at Chainraise. And I could introduce you to them, Eric. Great guys who are looking to transform how companies in OTC are going to raise money for the future. And so they're putting a Reg CF out for us at the end of the month, and we will be investing quite a considerable amount of funds in marketing that raise, or that for Boxo, which is a Boxo raise. So you'll start to see a lot more activity from us, marketing and advertising, probably from the middle of February, beginning of February.
Awesome. Good. I look forward to seeing it. Where do you ultimately see the Levento Group by the end of 2023? And where do you think you're going to rank among your competitors in your sector?
Well, here's a good question for you, Eric. When you did your research, did you find any competitors? Because I haven't found any. But no, all jokes aside, because of course every business has got competitors, but I don't know anybody who's doing exactly what Boxo does. Now, of course, there are competitors in portfolio management systems. You've got the big banks will have their own tools, and there are tools which retail investors can buy, and they can hook up to different trading platforms like MetaTrader and things like that. And there's tools we say about. So I could say, okay, for portfolio management systems, there are competitors. Does Boxo have a competitor? Well, you could also say that any movie production company is a competitor, but we don't necessarily invest in the later stages of production. We're in that early stage of buying and developing rights. And I don't have a specific competitor in mind as to who does that and who does it in such a risk-averse way that we do successfully. So I'm sure someone's going to come out of the woodwork, this year, or they'll fall onto my radar screen, or someone will tell me about them. So I'm not going to say we don't have competitors, but I just don't know who they are. So we'll have to park this one for maybe 6 months, and you welcome me back, and I'll give you an update.
Oh, you're welcome on here anytime. And a little fast fact about me, I have directed stage productions. And so when you're talking about rights, every show that I have directed or have had to produce, you have to pay rights for that show. So no matter what. And so any company that actually wants to do a production has to pay that right. So if you have one show and it's being done across 50 theaters in America, that's 50 times they retain the rights to that contract. So it's absolutely crucial. So the fact that you're getting in on it's going to be a revenue producer.
Oh, for sure. No, it's a very, very exciting sector that we put ourselves in.
So is there anything in closing, I know we're wrapping up now, that you'd like to share with us, share with shareholders and potential shareholders?
So I think, Levento shareholders and investors are a great community. I value, frankly, some of the stick that they give me sometimes. And I think they value our openness. I have nothing but positive views for the year as we move forward. Some investors and shareholders, they will tweet to me directly or ask me a question. I do try to answer some of them. Some of them I can't answer if they're asking something which should be answered directly by Levento. But I do really value the fact that they interact with us. And I know that Levento shareholders and investors have made the business. They are who we are. And so I only encourage that, that level of contact moving forward.
Justin Mathews, thank you for joining us here on the BFC.
Thank you, Eric. It's been an absolute pleasure, and thank you for entertaining me and allowing me to go off script and entertain everybody and provide them with the information that they hopefully wanted to hear about Levento.
I look forward to having you on again soon so you can share your progress with the BFC community. If you enjoyed this interview, click subscribe and turn on the notifications. That's all I got today. And remember, there's more that binds us than breaks us, guys. Have an awesome day. Peace.